Welcome to the Gay Buddhist Forum, where teachers from all schools of Buddhism offer their perspectives on the Dharma and its application in modern times, especially for LGBTQI audiences. These talks are offered freely to the world and made possible by appreciative listeners. If you would like to support our efforts to share the Dharma with underserved audiences, please visit gaybuddhist.org. There you can donate, find a list of upcoming speakers, or enjoy many hundreds of these recorded talks dating back to 1996.
It is our custom to go around and introduce ourselves. You can introduce yourself by your first name only, or both first and last name. And as a way of slowing us down and practicing mindfulness, I'm going to suggest that we say, my name is, before saying our name, and then waiting a minute after the person before you speaks. Maybe take a breath after the person before you speaks, and then say, my name is. My name is Ray Dyer.
My name is Joe Rodriguez.
My name is Peter.
My name is Al.
My name is George Hubbard.
My name is Bob Siegelton.
My name is Elliot.
My name is Joe.
My name is Lou.
My name is Dave.
My name is Peter.
My name is Lee.
My name is Andre.
My name is David.
My name is Jay.
My name is Harley.
My name is Jim.
My name is Daniel.
My name is Michael.
My name is Ron.
My name is Anthony.
My name is Kevin.
My name is Rob.
My name is Peter.
My name is Larry Wish.
My name is Reggie.
My name is Clint.
My name is Peter.
My name is Jose.
My name is Esmeralda.
My name is Jack Busby.
My name is Steve Max.
My name is Ray.
My name is Jerry Jones.
I'm Ed Ng.
My name is Tage Livia.
My name is Jason.
My name is Paul Shepard.
My name is Dave.
My name is Richard.
My name is Harvey Whitten.
My name is Brad.
My name is Mark.
My name is Ronald.
Is there anyone who's here for the first or second time or returning after a long absence? 1, 2, 3, 4. Great. Welcome. And please join us for socializing after the sitting and the talk. And just a reminder to old-timers to welcome the newcomers. Our speaker today is Joe Rodriguez. Joe is a Zen Buddhist practitioner who is curious about applying Buddhist principles to all areas of human life. Following the teachings of Suzuki Roshi, Reb Anderson, Jack Cornfield, and Pema Chodron, Joe practices conducting his everyday activities, including participating in a business meeting, going shopping, sitting in zazen, discussing politics, in a more mindful and embodied way. Joe.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, you should see me going Zen shopping. It's really fun. Well, first off, I want to just thank Jerry Jones for inviting me to speak here today. I have so much respect for GPF and its pioneering role in spreading the Dharma in the gay community. You know, I live about 5 minutes from here, and sometimes I pop on down here for Sunday Zazen. And I'm just always reminded how lucky I am to live in San Francisco and be part of a gay Buddhist Sangha. It's really an unusual situation we have here, so I just love that. I also want to acknowledge some of my friends came here to keep me honest during this topic, so number of them. So thank you for that. This past winter, when Jerry invited me to speak, I wrote him back and said, I want to do something that I'm actively learning about, something that causes me great personal suffering, and something that's just juicy and interesting to me. So, so I proposed the topic, a spiritual approach to dealing with quote unquote difficult people. And for me, this is a really personal and relevant topic. It's an issue that's really been up for me in my everyday life. I notice my agitations with people, but probably the biggest agitation I have had is I have a business partner, and we have a 3-person consulting firm. And this person is an amazing person, talented, hardworking, smart, supportive. But she can be she can really be a total butthead too. And she can be controlling, domineering, constantly interrupting my partner and I, as well as our clients. Totally defensive and shut down when you try to raise these issues with her. So I wanted to find a way to talk to her about these issues, thereby taking our partnership in business to the next level, and do that in a spiritual context. So I used this topic and what I was going through in my personal life to see what I could learn. So does any of this sound familiar? Without naming names, can anyone give me an example of a difficult person in their life? Okay.
This couldn't be any more apropos for me because my sometimes lover is very much like this, and it's been 10 years of deciding whether I am the one that is too sensitive. So for me, this has been my practice to be patient in this whole circumstance, but one keeps wondering, well, is enough already, you know?
I got it. I saw another hand over here. Another example, someone in their life. Yeah.
Well, I was president of my condo building, and this woman who was a real troublemaker wrote a letter to the Attorney General attacking me, and it really freaked me out because I didn't want to pay for a lawyer to defend myself, so I quit, and actually the Attorney General solved this, couldn't care less about what she said.
Great. Those are great examples. I think we all have people that we feel cause us suffering in our own lives. I'd just like everyone to pause just for a second and think of someone and in your life that you feel is difficult. And as we go through this conversation today, see if you can apply that. So just take like 5 seconds. Okay. So before I go much further, I just want to make a few disclaimers up front. First off, I'm a meditator. I'm not a psychologist. So I refer you to professionals if you have a specific, really big problem. Secondly, in particular, if you are in an emotionally abusive or physically abusive relationship, please protect yourself and quickly find a nonviolent way to end this abuse. Some of the things I don't want some of the things I say today to be taken that you should put up with abuse. And then lastly, as we go along, feel to make remarks and share your experiences, and I will take formal questions at the end of this little talk. So what is a difficult person? Anyone want to throw a definition out for what constitutes a difficult person?
Someone who's not adhering to the social contract we all have with each other.
Great. That's a great.
People that do not listen and do not hear.
Excellent. I saw a hand over here. Yes.
Someone who pushes my buttons.
All right. Perfect. Well, some of what I did is basically I started reading as many books on this topic. I started taking a couple of workshops, and I came across some definitions that work well with these. So here are 3 that really got my attention. Difficult people are beyond our control. They have been making people miserable for thousands of years. And I love the beyond my control part, so that's really juicy. Second definition. People who have the following dysfunctional personality types. The battle tank, the whiner, the passive-aggressive one, the yes person, the pessimist, and the know-it-all. As my psychologist friend, he calls these personality disorders, which I guess is the correct term for difficult people. Thirdly, and this is one that really I really resonate with this one, a difficult person is someone who causes us to feel things we rather not be feeling. I really thought that was interesting. It starts implying some responsibility here rather than something just out there. I guess in the case of my business partner, I'd call her the dominatrix. One of the books I read claims that 10% of the population is difficult. So 10% has one of these personality types. But interestingly, another article I read claims that most people are difficult 10% of the time. My immediate reaction, well, that's not me because I'm a loving guy and I'm a Buddhist. So, more about this a little later on. What are the common traits of difficult people and situations? Well, I think you guys captured some of this. One is insensitivity. They're so focused on getting their needs met, they don't consider others. 2, inadequate communication. They are controlling, aggressive, or passive in their communication with others. I think we heard that one there. And lack of caring. They don't track what others feel. They live in their own bubble. Yeah, my ego says, wow, these guys are barbarians. But further, my research into the subject is most difficult people don't have bad intentions. Most often, they're acting out of their own unconscious emotional pains and needs. In other words, they're so involved in their own narrative or storyline, they don't think about their impact on others. They are unconsciously running from or compensating from their deep emotional wounds, and their behavior follows. I can really relate to that in my own life. There's some days where I feel like really it's very cloudy. So back to my business partner. I could clearly see that her intentions were not bad. She is the 5th child of 6 in a family of noisy boys and jocks. She had to be very aggressive to get attention and learn to be very loud to survive. So let's keep looking and going at this subject from a Buddhist perspective. As the Buddha said, we have basic goodness. Only our delusions are obscuring our true Buddha nature. One of my favorite teachers, Suzuki Roshi, from the Soto Zen tradition, taught that we should use everything in our lives to wake up, including difficult people. He saw everyone as multidimensional beings with basic goodness, and not having all good behavior, not having all bad behavior either. As he used to say, we are perfect just the way we are. We all have a little room for improvement. And I think that captures, both our humanity and is a call for humility too. And one of the best books I read on the subject, Thank You for Being Such a Pain, the author Mark Rosen debunks the idea of treating difficult people as a phenomenon outside of ourselves. He writes, the pain and frustration we are suffering and we experience with certain people are just as important for our personal and spiritual growth as love and joy. Adversity is our teacher, pushing us past our resistance and teaching us what we would fail to otherwise learn. Wow. So wait a minute. My ego's like, hey, it's about them. I don't want to take responsibility for this stuff. I didn't like these words when I first read them. I wanted part of me wanted to be justified in my anger and my resentment against my business partner. And part of me wanted to discover some really shortcuts to controlling her behavior. Rosen goes on. Healing requires us to be attentive to the spiritual lessons life provides us. The best response does not involve retaliation, fighting back, enduring the difficulty, walking away, or giving up. The true resolution only comes when you finally learn what the other person is teaching you. So the author is suggesting that I have to do some personal work here, that there might be a spiritual lesson buried in the situation with my business partner. So as a follower of the Buddhist way, it became really clear that I needed to do some personal work and take inventory of my stuff. Paying attention to what's going on inside of me and to my behavior, not what someone else is doing. And after a few months of observing and being very honest with myself, I came to the very challenging conclusion. Yes, I too am a difficult person at least 10% of the time. And I think my friends here probably can attest to it. And I noticed my difficult behavior came up in these situations. You guys might be able to relate to this. While driving, I'm notoriously impatient with slow or unskilled drivers. 2, when someone is mindlessly invading my own physical space, like on a crowded plane, or bumping into me at a dance club. 3, while working with someone I perceive to be incompetent. And 4, and the big one, while talking politics with someone who completely disagrees with me. In other words, someone who is a conservative. Yeah, I'll say a little more about that. Any examples for you guys that come up, like where you become difficult, that anyone wants to share? You don't have to. Yes?
It's very hard for me when people come up with profound prejudices. I kind of have an immediate response to either want to challenge or pull away without just staying present and open and available for, particularly prejudices that have to do with ethnic groups or whole bodies of people.
It is hard. It is really hard. That's a good example.
Anger begets anger, and it's really difficult to put a lid on that.
Yeah. Any other examples? Yes.
Somebody talks for the sake of talking without thinking whether anything to say is make any sense or has any significance.
I think we all can come up with examples. But this last area I'm going to go into, this idea of politics. I'm not going to talk about my politics. I'm going to describe how it's triggered me and what I've learned from that. So my friends who know me, this is a topic that I take very seriously, often too seriously. And then in this wonderfully colorful and unpredictable political year, I've had many opportunities to become angry and express it. The plain truth is, I've been getting into arguments with complete strangers, hijacking dinner party conversations, critiquing political arguments of even some of my dates, and generally not knowing when to shut up. Honestly, looking back at my behavior since I was very young, I can see how my political passions and good intentions have often escalated into outright combativeness. Maybe the best example of this happened late last year when I had a blind date with a guy who turned out to be a twice George W. voting and now John McCain supporting Republican. What a surprise. You should have seen my face when he told me he was a Republican. I tried my best to be on good behavior, but I quickly lost my cool when he contended the country can't afford universal health care, especially after mentioning his private plane and arriving in a Lexus SUV. Underline the SUV. Yes. I became one of those blowhards on McLaughlin group, increasingly loud and indignant, scaring the people at Pete's, berating his lack of participation in the gay rights movement while enjoying all the benefits. So I was really causing quite a scene at Pete's as things went on. To make matters worse, he really stepped into it when he started dissing my Latino brothers and sisters as illegal immigrants wanting to educate their children in our schools and using our medical services while giving nothing back to the country. That's when I started attacking his character for being greedy, racist, and shallow. Oh boy, I was in the middle of it. Clearly not my finest moment. And underneath all my self-righteousness, I was really ashamed. Not because of my views, but because of my insensitivity, my lack of skillful communication, and my lack of caring for him. So who is the difficult person now? I thought, where does this behavior come from? This keeps on coming up in my life, dinner conversations and various things. I thought about it for a while, and all roads led to my family, especially my dad. The same wonderful man who inspired me with the ideals of JFK, Martin Luther King, and RFK, and who was raised by my fiery and great-grandfather after his parents' divorce. You see, my great-grandfather was one of the first union organizers in the coal fields of Spain. And ultimately, he was put on a boat to America at gunpoint and told never to return. He was such a loyal Democrat that he would never allow a Republican into his house, for any reason. For the men on this side of my family, progressive politics are a tradition, and they are a very rough and tumble sport. Sitting around the family dining room table as a kid, I remember listening to my dad hold forth on a variety of political issues, with him taking opposite sides when I spoke to help me think and hone my debating skills. So I was trained to do this. Unfortunately, at the same table, when my mom shared her views, my dad often dismissed them as naive or somewhat stupid, hurting her feelings. So I learned this is what it means to be a man, to stake out your arguments and fight them to the bitter end, as if my self-image depended on it. I started thinking about all my social occasions over the years when I had been inappropriate by going off on a diatribe or dominating the conversation. And I really have a lot of regrets about that. I think, these reflections have made me more compassionate for the difficult moments of others. So in this way, I can actually understand the suffering of my business partner. And it got me thinking, what's the best way to approach her? How would I have liked my friends to talk to me about this? So as the primary season wore on, I closely watched myself and caught my behavior as best as I could, meeting and examining it, not fighting it. I still had some political eruptions, but I hit the pause button more and more, witnessing what was going on within me, seeing the old patterns, the need for control, the need to be right, the need to win. I could see clearly I was my dad's son. I talked to my mom about this problem, and to my surprise, she says, Dad doesn't do this anymore. He's learned from his mistakes and listens to almost everyone's opinion, well, except those people who are anti-gay and criticize his two gay sons. My mom revealed about 25 years ago, after I left left home, she firmly told my dad never to demean her political ideas again. And he hasn't. I also decided to go right to the source and talk to my dad. He was listening quietly over the phone and encouraged me to be more accepting of other people's opinions. And he told me, when he examines his life, he feels like he's wasted a lot of time trying to change other people. He says it's great to share ideas, but trying to change people is just not his business. He said he was wrong in the past, and he regrets some of the friendships that he lost because of his behavior. I thought this was a huge thing. So I have more empathy today for people, for difficult people, seeing beyond their behavior and seeing myself in them. Simply, we don't know the troubles others have seen. We don't know their experience. And a case in point is one of my friends is a real drama queen. And it's not you, Joey, who has drama queen in there. This is a guy who's really in pain. He churns through both friends and jobs just constantly. I think we've all known people like this. And as I learned more about him, I found out that he was born to a single mother in Vietnam. And he had to deal with the social disgrace of not having a father in a society that was very tight and traditional. And then after the Vietnam War and the U.S. left, they were really poor, and his mom made him go out on the street and beg for food. And then when he was 8 years old, he left Vietnam with his mom as a boat person, and they were bobbing around the sea the Sea of Thailand, I think, for about 10 days, and he watched as his fellow passengers were both raped and killed by marauding pirates. That's a huge thing for an 8-year-old boy to go through. And while it doesn't excuse his behavior, it sure helps explain it. My attitude toward him has softened, even as I keep clear boundaries with him. This friend and my business partner both show me places inside myself that need attention. And I think this is my really big insight that I want to share with you guys. I don't regard these people as other anymore. I don't like the term difficult people and prefer to refer this area as difficult behavior. I am more curious about what situations can teach me rather than see myself as the hapless victim. And just because I have aroused my compassion doesn't mean I let myself physically or emotionally be abused. Having healthy boundaries is a very loving thing to do for others as well as yourself, just as my mom did. So that's a little bit of my personal journey. And what I was able to do during this time is I kept a list of all the approaches to difficult situations that people suggested as I was going through the literature. And I have a few to share with you, and then I'll open it up for questions. The first approach is doing nothing, ignoring the situation, stifling feelings, pretending it isn't happening. But for me, that approach, by avoiding problems with other people, you only create more problems for yourself. I think that's pretty self-evident. Fighting back and escalating things is another approach. But as Thich Nhat Hanh says, retaliation only sows more seeds of sorrow, leading to war and self-destruction. And I think that one of the things that that was called out in the literature I thought was really interesting is fighting back. And there's sometimes you need to physically protect yourself or dialogue with a person, but I'm talking about really emotionally going at it, much like I did in my blind date situation with the Republican guy. Is fighting back involves blame. If you could hear what I related in that conversation, I started blaming him for all these things. And blame, which is problematic is the other person is likely to hear one of three things: that they are incompetent, that they are a bad person, and 3, that they are unworthy of love. And people close down when they feel they're being judged. There's just no way you're going to have much of a conversation. The third approach is being nice. I think we've all done this. Complying or placating behavior, for me, doesn't serve anyone in the long run. In the process, you tend to lose your self-respect, which is also very corrosive. And I think the other thing, this is sort of like the social contract you have with someone that you're interacting with. By not saying this hurts, they may do the very same behavior again out of ignorance. They don't know that. The last area in this group is called leaving them. This is a strategy. I call it rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic strategy. And I tend to notice that I tend to pick up in a new relationship where I left off in an old one. So whatever my stuff is that I'm running away from, I pick new people thinking it's going to be different this time. And what happens? The same stuff reappears. So those are 4 things I don't really recommend personally. I think the next 3 require more wisdom and skillfulness, representing a middle way between doing nothing and retaliation. And again, I kept on looking. One of the things that had stopped me from doing anything with my business partners, I just didn't know how to skillfully have a conversation. I thought I might get into one of these blaming or fighting back and escalate things and destroy the partnership, which is actually going pretty well, and I really like her. So here are 3 different approaches that I came across, and all of which I've used in the last couple of months. The first is nonviolent communication, or what other people call respectful confrontation. This is an increasingly popular approach that takes some practice. And rather than give you the whole thing, I actually did 4 easy steps in discussing a difficult topic, and that's a handout that really that's based on the nonviolent communication work. In this technique, you notice your feelings when you are in a difficult situation. But rather than lash back, you stay non-reactive and non-combative as possible. Pema Chodron talks about this a lot, and she's a famous Tibetan Buddhist teacher, and I really love her work. And she talks about being a log, letting your emotions and feelings sweep over you like a summer shower. And what she's saying is not to really tune into those feelings, but choose very carefully how you act on those feelings. Be mindful of your behavior. Anyway, this handout talks about that. The second approach that I think is a little more skillful is loving them, or a loving kindness practice. Cultivating the habit of asking yourself, why is this person's behavior so difficult? What is going on for them? I think almost any person I know or any situation I know, once I know a little bit more about them, I can understand where they're coming from and have more compassion. Again, it doesn't mean I necessarily put up with it or don't have proper boundaries. I just have a strategic frame, and I can be more like a keto guy. When someone comes at me, I could just step aside and not get too snagged. I think one of the challenges in this whole area is getting fixed. And it's like, I'm going to show them, that sort of self-righteousness and that sort of that's fixed quality. And a fixed quality for a human being, whether it's in emotions or relationships or even physically, isn't a really good thing. It leads to calcification, rigid stances. And I think the smartest and the greatest warriors have been people who have been able to step aside and work with things. The second point of this is separating the person from their behavior. So rather than, let me just tell you what happened with my business partner. This is what I did, and I actually used this nonviolent communication model. So I called her up and I said, listen, I'd like to talk to you about something. Can I come over? And she knew something was up because she, like I said, she's incredibly defensive. So we went to lunch, and then afterwards I said, there's been something I've been wanting to talk to you about. And that is, I've noticed, and this is where the nonviolent communication model says, you just describe in the barest terms what is going on, what is their behavior. I've noticed that when we've been in the last 3 client meetings, when I start talking, you start over-talking me. And you interrupt me and the client. And, this makes me sad, so you describe your feelings in addition to the behavior, and not respected by you. And I also don't get I feel like this isn't your intention, and I actually want to feel closer to you. So my request is, the next time we're in a business meeting, just to pay attention if you start interrupting me. And can you do that? And she could tell that I had approached this in a very soft way. And she was really, she's really moved by it. And she goes, I am really so sorry. This was not my intention. And I'm definitely going to work on it. And it's something that I've noticed, but I'm glad you're calling me out on it and talking about it. And she goes, and then she looked at me and she says, why do you think I do it? And because I was sort of studying this, and studying myself, I had thought about my own sort of journey and my little political rants. I said, well, you're the 5th child out of 6, and you grew up in a pretty crazy environment. I met your brothers when you had your 50th birthday party, and they're a rowdy bunch. I could barely get a word in edgewise. And, you're a girl. You were, a girl in that situation. You had to have really sharp elbows to be heard. She goes, yeah, I think you're right. So her behavior still happens, just like my behavior of when I read the Huffington Post or watch McLaughlin Group, I'm still shouting at the TV sometimes. But I'm aware of it, and I'm working with it. And my friends who have been incredibly patient with me, and they see my passion and my actual, how much I care about this country, so it's great. But they've been very patient with me, and there's been a few occasions where I've sent emails out, just apologizing for my behavior, taking responsibility for it, and totally apologizing for it, which I feel like is my business. So, and I think, one of the other aspects about loving kindness is being clear and firm and saying no. I think this is a thing that's sometimes harder for gay men to do, is have a clear no, especially around people that we are close to. And I don't know if that's because of our moms or whatever. I'll leave that to the shrinks in the room. But saying no is very important to be able to love someone. If you have a firm no, you can also be very loving too. And that's something that I think is really reflected in this whole area. And then lastly, you can see this whole talk's really been about this, is changing myself, feeling and processing my emotions with curiosity. So when I get stuck, and I was driving down to the Apple store to buy a new iPhone yesterday, and I've been down there 3 times, and the frickin' line is still 4 hours long. I just noticed that. And then someone was blocking my way as I was coming out of the parking lot, and I noticed that. And I'm like, okay, impatience. And just playing with that and just being curious about that. And I think seeing everyone as my teacher, even the annoying clerk at the video store, is really helpful. It doesn't have to be me up here talking, but everyone's our teacher. And then I think probably one of the best examples of a friend of mine is in how he's changed himself and some of the things is he laughs at himself a lot in the areas that he's difficult. And having that laughter and humility. And I think the people I respect the most are people that have somewhat difficult behavior and they laugh at it. And they just make jokes about it. And it diffuses it because it allows them to call out and say, yeah, I'm doing that, but in a very lighthearted way. So in summary, for me, dealing with difficult situation involves a clear choice. Do I want to be right or do I want to be happy? For me, if I get beyond the blame game, own my own emotional stuff, set clear boundaries, and respectfully communicate with others, I am much more likely to be happy. Like all things that are worthwhile, this is a practice. It requires some effort and an open heart. It requires the willingness to see, as Martin Luther King described, that all men are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality. It also requires us to let go of our grievances and heal the deepest human wound, our sense of separation. Those are my formal remarks. I'm glad to take any questions or remarks. Thank you.
Very interesting. The phrase difficult person immediately set it off an echo in my mind. I'm a physician, and in my training in the early 70s at a VA hospital in Connecticut, we had a conference on the difficult patient. The faculty had said to the trainees, myself and my colleagues, put on a conference, pick a topic, and come up with something that's relevant to you. Don't let us make the topic. So we got together, and the VA hospital is mostly filled with alcoholics and nicotine addicts. And so we came up with this notion that we were going to talk about what the difficult patient was. 30 years later, I am a specialist in addiction medicine, totally unconscious. But I'm wondering if the very first step was taking an interest. Somehow there seemed that there was a problem, and something starts to shift. Now, at that conference, I didn't come out of there saying, hey, I'm going to go into addiction medicine. It took time.
Right.
And a lot of it happened just probably because of a shift in my own attitude. A patient then disclosed to me that she was recovering alcoholic. Oh, that's interesting. And one thing led to another, and as I say, 30 years later, this is my specialty of interest. So be careful. You may have just opened yourself up to a new area of interest.
Thank you. And I think the point there is that curiosity, and that curiosity is a Buddhist practice in anything that is juicy and personal. It's like bringing your attention and awareness right to that subject, and as much as possible not having a lot of judgments, or at least be mindful of them. Yes.
Well, thank you for the topic. You got a big smile out of me when you introduced it. Because a couple of weeks ago I went into a meeting with one of my Dharma teachers, and I said, I'd like to talk today about my feelings about dealing with difficult people. And he said, oh great, let's talk about your difficult feelings dealing with people.
Touche. Richard.
Yeah, could you say a little bit more about having a firm no, and maybe give an example?
Well, actually I did a retreat where actually we were in sort of a martial arts sort of stance, and we just had to keep on, we had to convince the other person. They were supposed to role model some craziness, and we were supposed to say no. And I think what I got out of that, the emotional resonance out of that is this. Some people say no, and it doesn't really mean no, it means maybe, or I'm not sure. But, I think it's sort of, this is where we activate our spiritual warrior, is where when we say no, we mean no. And saying no and being clear about that doesn't mean that we're out of touch with our love. It just says no. And, it doesn't have to have this sort of angry or hateful quality to it. It's actually, with kids, working with kids, when you say no to them, they actually feel safer sometimes. That's the best way I could describe it.
Have you asked the Daily Republican out again?
No, but you know what was interesting was about that was I felt so bad I wrote a letter of apology. And he thought a lot about some of the policy things I had talked about, and he took responsibility for that. And he's an engineer at Apple. I think I'm not giving too much information away. And we've actually kept up a lively email correspondence about business and things that we actually have in common. And we just agreed to disagree on some of the other things. But I'm not demonizing him anymore. But man, when I came back, I was writing emails to a friend. You won't believe I met this gay Republican. Can you believe this shit? Yeah, blah, blah, blah. It was pretty hysterical.
Have you thought about going to a log cabin meeting and being quiet?
I think my friends who know me know that that's probably not going to happen in this lifetime. Yes.
I just actually yesterday or Friday just finished a business relationship with someone that was really difficult, like it just in craziness, like where they presented documents that I would sign off and have notarized, and then they would say, well, I don't want the documents you printed out, even though they were from their attorney, and I had to go back and read, just craziness. And so in bringing up emotions with my therapist around why can't I can see this behavior and it's obviously crazy, but it's still sticking, and we kind of came to the realization that I can't accept in others is what I can't accept in myself, in my craziness. So did you find that concept at all?
Yeah, I mean, the reason I told you the story about my own political righteousness is it's really about that. I mean, I actually, if someone had asked me 6 months ago, are you a difficult person? I'd be like, absolutely not. I have my moments, but I would be like, but by actually inventorying them and noticing them and going home and writing them down, I'm like, oh, I just did that. I realized, wow, this is my work too. And I describe those personalities like the whiner and this and this and this. I think we all have those voices in us, and we activate them at different times. But I really like this idea that instead of 10% of the people being difficult, that we're all difficult 10% of the time. I think there's something, that's our common humanity. And I think it allows us, because anytime we start putting it off on other people, we make them other. And I don't care what high spiritual tradition you're talking about. When you create other, you create wars, you create anger, you create divorce, you create all sorts of things. And I think, the Buddhist practice is coming back to saying we are one. We are, we're part of the same stream.
When you approached your business partner about how she overrode situations, did you share that part of yourself with her?
Well, she knows that part of myself. We go in and advise companies and CEOs to, we don't use Buddhist terms, but to be the best organizations they can be. So this is part of our practice. This is I was pissed at myself for not talking to her about this for months, but I didn't know how to talk about it without escalating it into a blame fest. And that was where my curiosity was, And I got to say, this nonviolent communication model, my last long-term boyfriend dragged me to this workshop, and I was like, oh, I'm not a violent communicator. Why am I going to this workshop? And I think we both learned how we could improve our communications and everything. So there's always room for improvement. Like Suzuki Roshi says, perfect the way we are, always room for improvement.
I was raised in a very much male family. I had a good dad and 3 brothers, and of course there's the Boy Scouts and high school and the Army and a male college, et cetera, et cetera. And I've learned how to get along with men reasonably well. I've had a terrible time with women, not the least of which my mother was a real bitch a lot of the time. And I find that my way of getting along with women is just to completely avoid them as much as possible. And that's particularly true in the last few decades, although as certainly a member of a pro-feminist group for many years too, until I caught on. Do you find the differences in your work between men and women?
Sure, there's a lot of differences, and I find differences between gay men and straight men. And you can start slicing that thing pretty in different ways. I think it's good when there's something that. All I would just say is this: if you have difficulty with women, or if something that you're not that familiar with, learn more about it. And look at some of the underpinnings. What's the knowledge in that area? And there's books about how women communicate differently and what's important to them in ways. Not to change yourself, just so you can bridge the gap. Because to me, I don't want to demonize someone. I want to actually find a way of keeping the dialogue going, keeping the love going, keeping connected.
Yeah, you mentioned that people aren't difficult, but their behavior is, and I think that's true in terms of negative behavior, which I just can't muster to tolerate, and then I have to make boundaries on it. But a lot of what I perceive quickly as negative behavior is behavior that I have difficulty with, and it isn't the behavior inherently negative. It's my inability to deal with it. And if it's something small, then I really try to work with it. And if it's something big and I feel this is going to take years and it's not fair for this relationship, to do a slugfest for a couple of years, then I make my boundaries, and some people stay and some people go. But I've never looked back on making boundaries. Because I always felt better afterwards, like it was the right thing.
Right.
Because I always contemplate them for a long time before.
I think that's very well said. And again, the Buddhist path is about perception, changing our perceptions of ourselves, getting back to that basic goodness of ourselves. And I would just say, when you're trying to discern someone's behavior or something, not to judge it, but to understand it, is ask yourself this: are they coming from love, or are they coming from fear? And it's usually been a really great litmus test for me.
Joe, will you be available to talk to people after the
Sure.
session? We need to move on. Do we have a host today?
I did put on some hot water for some young It seemed like there was a vacancy.
Okay. Are there any Sangha-related announcements?
Well, just a heads up, this will be in the newsletter sometime in August, but we are having our kind of quasi-annual GPF picnic in Tilden Park. It's August 9th, I think. It's that week, it's that Saturday. I think it's the 9th. As it gets closer, I'll provide information. And there will be information available for people who are interested. But just as a heads up.
Jerry?
Hi, I'm Jerry. I'm the speaker coordinator for you. And in 2 weeks, I want to remind everybody we're doing Poetry Day with Dean Bellerby. And everyone is asked or requested to bring a piece of poetry, prose, or sing a song. It doesn't have to be Buddhist-based. You can bring anything, but it'll be sharing whatever you'd like to. And then next week, we'll go back to Ray Dyer. He's going to be facilitating a workshop for us, and he's going to talk about that.
Yeah, I'll just say it's about touch and meditation, paying attention, applying some of the principles from meditation to interacting with another person. And it's a very safe thing. It may feel threatening to you to be involved in this, but you will not physically or in any way be unsafe. But just notice what your mind is doing. Your mind may tell you this is not safe, but in fact it will be a safe situation. And for those of you that don't want to participate, there will be the option of doing a discussion group, a small discussion group about the topic or whatever you want to talk about. So, if you have touch issues or resistances, I would encourage you to come and experiment because it is a safe place to experiment. Any other announcements? Yeah.
Yeah, my name is Michael. I'm the coordinator of the annual GBF retreat. It's going to be happening in just over 2 months at Joshua Conning Institute, September 19th through the 21st. There are registration forms out there. They're bright orange. And if you have any questions, please ask me. There is scholarship money available. And I took over coordinating the retreat last year. And after about 3 months of trying to find a teacher, gave up on trying to find a teacher, and we did something different, which was to just kind of mine the wisdom of the Sangha and have people share their own wisdom. And I think we stumbled on something really special, so we're going to continue that tradition this year. And let me know if you have any questions.
Okay. Since there's not a host today, the host normally makes certain announcements. If I can remember them, I guess wash your teacups if you use them in the sink as provided. We recommend a donation between $5 to $8 to help keep this thing going. More if you can, less if you can't. Sometimes people meet afterwards to go out to lunch together. They meet outside if they're interested. Did I miss anything?
Sign-up sheet.
Oh yeah, there's a sign-up sheet for if you want to be on a mailing list. We just put your name and address and other information.
Yeah, there are pink sheets there that you can sign up to be on the mailing list to receive the newsletter. You can indicate if you want to receive a hard copy in the mail or just an email copy or both. And there's also a column if you want to be listed in the GBF directory, indicate that with a check mark or yes. And if you leave it blank, you will not be listed in the directory. Yeah.
A reminder that our talks are available on the internet at the GBF website, gaybuddhist.org.
Any other announcements before we close? Okay, Joe's going to lead us in closing.
This is a short one, so I wrote it out this morning. We join in the circle to see and share our basic goodness, knowing that we are safe, healed, and whole. We are free to forgive and free to save the world. Amen.
Thank you for listening to the Gay Buddhist Forum. If you would like to hear several new talks per month and be notified of upcoming speakers so you can participate live, please subscribe to this podcast, like us on Facebook, and join our mailing list by visiting gaybuddhist.org.